Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious and most merciful. I would like to begin this session by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we are on and pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, dear parents and guardians. On behalf of the college, I would like to thank everyone for taking your time off your busy schedule to attend this information session on SEQTA Parents. As a school, we welcome parent engagement and support to ensure that we are able to maximize the full learning potential of our students. We are grateful to see many parents here today who would like to play a key and important role in your child's progress. In today's session, we have the following panelists: Ms. Rahat Arain, Director of Student Achievement and Innovation; myself, Mr. Sufyan Amin, Head of Digital Learning at Siraat College; Mr. Said Farid, Head of Mathematics in Primary School; Mr. Samir Raza Khan, Learning Support Analyst for the Digital Learning Team. We will be here to take you through this information session. If you have questions pertaining to the topics raised today, please type in your questions in the Q&A box. We have Mr. Said Farid who will be collating the questions and will be addressing them at the end of today's session. All right, without further ado, let's begin with Ms. Rahat, who will take you through our new reporting model, which is called continuous reporting. Over to you, Ms. Rahat.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our information session on looking at your child's results and how to make sense of it in a launch of a new system that we're going to be sharing with you. Well, actually, it's not a new system. It's the same system we've been using, but we've been working within the school to see how we can actually make the reporting system, the assessment system that we have work in a way that is best between home and school. So today's presentation, I'd like to begin with just letting you know who I am. My name is Rahat, and I am the Director of Learning and Innovation at the college. And I'm going to be talking to you about continuous reporting. So this year we're looking at continuous reporting, and this is actually the launch of it with our parents. But before we get into that, I wanted to just explain what our typical assessment or reporting, semester reporting is, and to explain that that is still continuing. So our reporting has typically been twice a year. It's looked at the final grades at the end of each semester. So the end of semester 1, which is around June, and the end of semester 2, which is around December. It does carry final grades, and it also gives information about the attitude to learning. So in the next slide, as you can see from here, you can see that there's a bit of an outline about the subject that you'll be looking at. Then there's an attitude to learning, and there's different categories to measure against. Then there's a summative part. So in this section here at the bottom, you will see that it's broken down according to the subject into its particular components, and an assessment rating is given. So that's a sample report, and it is the typical one that we've been using, and we are continuing to use that twice a year. The only change will be to the naming convention of it. So instead of it being called a semester report, we will have a mid-year report and then an end-of-year report. So the end-of-year report will actually capture all the learning for the year and not just the last semester. So continuous reporting, what is it and why do we do it? So as the name suggests, continuous reporting is a process of reporting continuously. Teachers are constantly assessing the children, but we typically wait until the end of the semester to give students and yourselves as parents a full report on how they are going. These reports are a requirement on us and on all schools by the government, but they do not provide timely feedback to you or your child. So the idea behind continuous reporting is that we give students their results as they go. And this allows the students to constantly reflect on their progress, set goals, and make improvements during the year before it's too late. So results are best when they are released to parents too. So they also know how the child is progressing at all times. And so you can participate in meaningful discussions with your child and your child's teachers about the learning that's happening. So a continuous report is a report that builds throughout the year and provides students and parents with ongoing assessment of how a student is progressing. And needless to say, this is a wonderful opportunity for a home and school partnership because the discussions are based around learning. There are added benefits, obviously. It is a very targeted and transparent approach. So the feedback is at an individual task level. So there'll be an example coming up in the next slide, but it also reduces the surprises. It won't come as a surprise as to how your child is progressing in a particular area of their learning. Mrs. Sufyan will go through that in further detail as well later in the session today. The other benefit is of steady and regular improvement as well. You can see at the bottom of the screen, it's a quick little snapshot of part of what continuous reporting would look like for you. So this is showing at the bottom here, you can see 57.27 is showing the result for your child. If that was your child's report, that's the results so far in that area of reading in this particular case. But you can also see what the class minimum, the class average and the class maximum was, just to put it into perspective in terms of how your child is progressing in relation to children in their own classroom as well. So it's important that students are able to understand this information so they can really see what they need to do in order to be able to own this information and be able to see, okay, this is how I'm going, what can I do next to be able to get better in this particular area of learning. So really that student ownership, whether they're in primary school or secondary school, it's a very, very important part of their reflection process and how they can actually keep on improving. So again, it's not waiting right until the end of a semester, waiting until half the year has gone before something is done, but it is a lot more regular feedback and process of following up. The other benefit is you can actually track progress over time. So again, like the previous example we saw in reading, that's just a snapshot of overall the cumulative result. However, underneath that area, so underneath, if I go back, the details that you see there will sit a number of tasks that fit for that strand of learning. So now, not all of those strands of learning will have results next to them at the same time, but do not worry, they will come eventually as the results are being entered. But it's really important to be able to see how much growth is actually happening in that area. And you can see that as you look from task to task. Do not worry if this is not making sense to you right now. When Mr. Sufyan covers this in more detail soon, you'll be able to actually see what we mean by tracking progress over time. It's sufficient to know that it is a very useful space for us to be having that conversation again. And of course, the feedback process, it's a cycle. It's about looking at how the child is progressing, having those conversations with the learner as to how they feel that they have progressed, what they can do to get better, which areas need more attention, which areas are their strength. So these kinds of discussions that can happen, they're quite rich discussions between the teacher and the student, between the student and the parent, and also between the parent and the teacher. And it is very cyclic in nature in that sense. And finally, what it isn't is that it's not a replacement for the reports. Like I mentioned at the start, we will continue to have our reports twice a year, the name being a mid-year report and end-of-the-year report. And these reports will continue to indicate grades. But please note that the continuous reports that you see on your child's page will not be exactly as it is in the reports, because the reports will be calculated based on certain weightings. And this is different to the parent and student view, which gives you information by task or the different forms of assessment. It doesn't give you the final indication of grades. Now, remember, the final indication of grades, it's a mandatory requirement for us to produce those reports. But the real benefit, like we mentioned before, is really in that continuous reporting, which allows you to see task by task, major assessment by major assessment, how the learner has actually, how they've actually progressed in each area. And so the subjects are going to be broken down by the strands. So when you do look at the information that's presented in front of you, do not worry too much about if you see any codes, as these are actually used as a reference point by the teachers for their planning. But we share that with you just to show which areas that we are assessing and how your child is going. And it's definitely not a tool for unhelpful dialogue. The way we envisage this working is that you will be able to have productive conversations with your child if they are struggling in any particular area. This is highlighted to you much earlier on. You can have that discussion and see where your child may need further support, or if there's any extra support that they need within the school or outside of school. At least that is flagged and it comes under your attention. And it may be a way for you to have more rigorous dialogue with your child as well, and to see how they're tracking. Often as a parent myself, if I used to ask my teenage child, how's school? It's fine, it's all good. And I would not really get information necessarily out of the child until I actually got to see the reports or I attended the parent-teacher conferences. But this way, in a very sensitive way, you can actually have those discussions with your child to see how they're tracking, and celebrate whatever successes that you see them making, and be helpful in whichever struggles that they are actually facing. Because it's, again, we have to look at the process. It has to be, a very humane process. We are not using the reporting to bring them down. We are really using this to capture opportunities, and that's what continuous reporting is actually about. So we hope that you will join us on this journey and help every single one of our learners to be able to be the very best version of themselves, inshallah. So Jazakallah khairan. We are going to be looking at your questions. So if you have questions as you are going through, please put them in the chat box below. And right at the end of this presentation, we will be going back to make sure we've covered your questions. Jazakallah khairan.
Thank you, Ms. Rahat, for that information on continuous reporting. This year, the school will be adopting a new grading system, and this grading system will be consistent across both primary and secondary school. We have decided to realign the marks and the grades to better reflect student performance and school expectations. Now, previously, you will recall that a C grade would correspond to a mark that's between 50 to 60. Now, think about this. A C grade sounds acceptable, but 50% means that a child is only able to understand 50% of the knowledge that is taught. So we have decided to kind of realign these expectations to better reflect the school rigor in terms of learning. And so now this is our new grading system. So in our new grading system, a U grade, which is ungraded, will be from 0 to 39 marks. All right, and E grade will then be from 40 to 49 marks. Now, moving up from there, D grade will be from 50 to 59. And a C will be from 60 marks to 64 marks. A C plus would be from 65 marks to 74 marks. Moving up, the B grade will be from 75 to 79 marks. B plus will be from 80 to 84 marks. And the A will now be from 85 to 94 marks. And A plus is from 95 marks to 100 marks. Right, so that's our new grading system. I understand that parents may have some questions or queries in regards to this, so feel free to type in the question and answer box, and we will, inshallah, address this at the end of today's session. Now let's move on to our next section. In this next section, I'll be covering with you on how you can access SEQTA Parents from the SEQTA portal and how you can interpret and read the marks and understand the data from SEQTA Parents. Assalamualaikum. My name is Sufyan Amin and I am the Head of Digital Learning at Siraat College. Over the past few months, the digital learning team have been busy trying to make learning transparent within the school. One way that we are doing this is to open up SEQTA Parents to everyone. With this, we hope to make learning transparent to all parents, as well as to keep parents updated on your child's performance in school. So I would like to welcome you to this workshop, and in this section, I'll be sharing with you on how you can access SEQTA Parent, as well as how you can interpret the marks and the data so that you can track your child's performance. Now, let's begin with the rationale as to why we are doing this. Well, essentially, we want to engage parent support in students' learning and also to keep you, parents, updated on your child's progress. So as Ms. Siraat mentioned in her earlier segment, at Siraat College, we are now adopting continuous reporting. Well, continuous reporting means that there will be many touch points throughout the year where you will be updated on your child's progress. Reporting at Siraat will now be based on Australian curriculum standards. I will now take you through an overview of the Australian curriculum. For every subject, we have strands. Some subjects may have 2 strands, and other subjects may have 3 or more strands. And under each strand, there are going to be content descriptors or the standards. In our new reporting format, we will now be reporting every subject based on the strands. I will now take you through how you can access SEQTA Parent. The easiest way to do this is to navigate to the Siraat website. Here on the top right corner of the website, there is a drop-down menu. Select SEQTA Parent. You will then be brought to this page here to log in into SEQTA Parent. So please key in your login details as provided by the school. Once you have entered your details, you will then be brought to SEQTA Parent homepage. Let's click on Assessments. And once you do that, you will see that there is a list of subjects. This list contains the subjects that your child is taking for this year. So let's select one of the subjects, for example, science. All right. And here you will see that on the left window panel, there are 4 different strands. The strands for science are biology, chemistry, earth and space, and physics. On the left window, you will see that there are charts for 2 of the strands, and there are no charts for the other 2 strands. If you do not see a chart, it simply means that the strand has not been activated. The teacher will probably teach that strand in the later part of the year. For the other 2 strands, you will now see that there are performance indicators in the form of a bar chart. Let's continue and click on one of the strands. Say, for example, I click on the physics strand. Here you will see that there are 3 segments: the bar chart area, the assessment area, and the marks. Let's look at the bar chart area. This is where you see your child's performance based on the performance of other students within the year level. So in this case here, for the physics strand, you will see that the maximum score is 100 marks. The lowest score, or the minimum score, is 23.97. And the average score for that particular strand in the whole year level is 82.5. And your child's performance is indicated by the bar chart. In this case here, it's 90.07. So what this means is that your child is performing higher than the average student for that strand in that particular year level. In the next section, you will see that there are assignments. These are basically assignments that is related to the strands. On the left side is where you see the list of assignment, and on the right side will be the marks for that particular assignment. So again, here you will see how your child is performing against each and every assignment. I'm going to now click on the Earth and Space strand for science. If you look at the assignment list, you will see that there are 3 assignments that's been put aside for this strand. One of the assignment has already been assessed. Here you're not able to see the bar chart or the marks chart for the other 2 assignments. This means that the assignment has not been assessed, and very likely it will happen in the later part of the year. And with this, I hope that you're able to understand how your child is performing based on the different assessments, as well as based on the year level. Thank you for watching. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for sending in your questions. I think we've got about 3 questions now. The first one regarding where can parents find the semester curriculum? Miss Rahat, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep. I think the parents would like to find out where they can find the semester curriculum, which means what are the topics the students will be learning for the semester.
Yes, very good question. Thank you for that. The actual outline is actually in a section of that web page as well. Just wondering if we can, Mrs. Sufyan, are you able to put up that parent view? There is actually a section in the parent view which gives the subject outline. In particular, in the report, you will see in the mid-year report and the end of the year report, at the top section of each subject, there will be the outline for that particular subject. So that's part of the curriculum. The curriculum itself is the Australian curriculum, which is widely available on the websites as well. If you type in Australian curriculum, or if you type in ACARA, you'll be able to see what the actual curriculum is. That's the curriculum we follow. But in terms of the description for the subject, that will be at the top of the report, and it will also be on the page for each subject as well as the outline. I hope that answers that question. If not, please do send us an email, and we'll try and take you through that. But that is actually on the web page as well. Thank you. Go to the next one.
Yep, thank you, Ms. Rad. The other question is, we have changed the grading system so that C would now be a D. I think parents would like to find out if it is the same across different schools.
Yeah, sure. We actually had a lot of rigorous discussion before we decided to finalize the current grading system now that we are using. And a lot of the discussion was around what are other schools using, what are the government schools using, what are other independent schools using. There's no exact one that's stipulated. However, we found ours to be quite closely related to other schools as well. So we did do a bit of benchmarking to make sure we're not off the mark. We feel that we were probably more accurate now in our grading system than we were previously. We are being a lot more particular, especially with this grading system, because we use it for other support services at school. What we do is actually identify if a child has a certain grading, what level of support they actually need. So in the past, it wasn't quite lining up in terms of, for example, if they needed learning enrichment or if they needed extra support at a higher level, or whether they needed differentiation in the classroom, or whether they actually needed another chance to demonstrate that they do actually understand to the required level. We didn't actually match that up. So the discussions we had at the senior team level was to make sure that our current gradings now align to our practice of support given to students. And in fact, also extension as well by that same manner. We looked at better differentiating the A and even A+ level. There was a lot of discussion, rich discussion that we had in terms of, well, what does it mean if a child gets an A? What does it mean when they get an A+? And in the mid-year report that you will be getting at the end of this term, inshallah, we do have the interpretive sheet for the grading system. So that will better explain exactly what each grade means in terms of whether they understand some of the curriculum, some of the time, or some of the curriculum most of the time, or most of the curriculum some of the time. So there's a lot of descriptive language based around helping you to understand in terms of our assessment of their learning, how much of the curriculum that they have actually mastered. Okay. Mr. Said,
Yeah,
Sorry,
thank
is
you
there
for that
another question?
reply, Ms. Siraat. I think the parents would like to have a copy of the new grading system. Is there somewhere we can put up for the parents to have a look at it and keep a copy of it?
Yeah, I think what we can do, we'll see if we can either put it up on the website. I think Mr. Sufyan can probably better explain that more than me. But definitely the idea is that you stay in the loop, you understand what those gradings actually mean. It doesn't come as a surprise for you. So we will look at ways either whether we put it on the website or whether we embed it within each subject. But we thank you for pointing that out. We'll get that information out to you, inshallah.
Thank you, Ms. Siraat. And I think there's a question on the minimum and average that's being shown when the parents click on the subject and the assessment. Is that the minimum for the year level, or is that the minimum and average for the class?
I'll let Mr. Sufyan answer that one.
Yeah, so basically, we have set it up. So basically, we have set up the system in such a way that the result that you see for your child is compared against everybody at the same year level. So it is not based on a class comparison, not based on your child's performance based on the class, but it is based on your child's performance based on the whole year level. So if your child is in, say, for example, FC, his result is being compared to FA, FB, FC, and FD students. Yep, so I hope that answers the questions.
Yep. And we have another question here on how do we standardize students' performance compared to students in similar grade across other schools in Australia, and what steps are being taken to encourage STEM courses? I think let's look at the first question first. How do we standardize students' performance in a grade level similar to students in the same grade level across Australia? Ms. Rahat?
Yep, I can answer that one. There are a number of touch points, I guess, that we use to moderate how we are scoring. So, for example, not every assessment that we conduct internally is going to be able to give you an indication of how that child would perform compared to their peers Australia-wide or in similar schools. There are very widely available assessments that many of you are familiar with. For example, NAPLAN, that is conducted at year 3, 5, 7, and 9, which gives us standardized information. So that allows us to see, that's another piece of information that we use for the child. However, that's every 2 years. So what we've actually have access to are other forms of assessments as well. They're called PAD assessments. And for the PAD assessment, what we actually do is use the information there to correlate with how our assessments are going. So it's not, the final gradings are not based on just one form of assessment. We use a number of assessments, and we use that information to actually not only find out how the child has gone at the end of a particular unit of work or particular area of learning, but it is also used in terms of our instruction. Do we need to go back and reteach something? Do we need to give the child an opportunity to demonstrate that they have understood or to reteach it? Do we need to go back and see if some of the assessments we had in the past may have been too easy or too hard? But in any case, the assessments that you see, that the ongoing ones, they will still give a very good picture, a very good understanding in terms of the assessments that they've done, how they're actually tracking. Now, remember this, the reports that we produce, they're mandatory reports twice a year, and they will give you the picture in terms of where we believe, after we've looked at all the information, that's the PAD assessments, there's essential assessments as well that are also standardized. If they're in the NAPLAN year, we use some of that information towards the end of the year. But there are a number of assessments that are used, and I'm sure the teachers will vouch for this. There's no shortage of that. But definitely the challenge is to moderate that, and that's an ongoing process. There is no exact science to it. A lot of teacher judgment is used to evaluate our assessments, but it's not left to only teacher judgment. That's why we have standardized assessments such as PAT that we do. There's a number of assessments that we do, and that's on a yearly basis. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Ms. Siraat. We've got another question here. Does this mean the students will be having more tests and assessments?
No, I don't think this is not changing the way we have been conducting our assessments. The main change has been, I guess, in aligning those assessments with the curriculum. So making sure that the assessments we are actually doing are backed by what we need to ensure they have understanding from the curriculum. And it also means that those assessments are now shared with you as school home partnership, as opposed to sitting only with the teacher or the team of teachers that are looking at it. So we haven't drastically changed practice in that, but what's the big driver in this is that partnership where now you'll be able to keep track as well.
Well, thank you, Ms. Siraat. I think we've got a couple of questions that came in. Generally, the parents are asking, because we have increased the standard, we have changed the grading system, how would the teacher in the classroom be adjusted in order for the students to benefit and able to meet the standards required?
Yeah, there's a number of things schools do to address that. At our school, what we do is look at the number of students. We look at the students that are actually performing below the expectations. So if they're, for example, scoring E, or and if it's well below where they need to be, then there's a lot of intervention that takes place more regularly. If they're sitting at a C or a D, it indicates that there's a whole lot of intervention that's happening in the classroom by the classroom teacher. If they're sitting at well above as well, so if they're sitting at A and A plus, that also indicates to the classroom teacher that these students are progressing at a much faster rate, and they need deeper knowledge, they need to be extended. So this is information that the classroom teacher actually uses to help guide. This is the teaching practice when we actually look at these assessments on an ongoing basis to help make decisions. But in terms of a student sitting at a C plus where they need to be, that's the bare minimum. So that's our expectation, that they're sitting at a C plus. Any less than that, and over a period of time, if a child maintains a pattern where they're sitting below that, it indicates to us that then there's more and more gaps as they progress through the school years. So what target is to reduce the gap, lift up the results, and ensure that we are able to provide the support services that we have in-house. And at times, we will reach out to you as well, depending on the nature of the need of the child. It can be academic, but mixed in with other matters as well. Sometimes the behavior can play out in ways that affects academics as well. Oftentimes it does. So we would like to work with the parents. We would like to work with the families to help address that. So really, it's more about us working as a team to support the learner than anything else. What we don't want people getting worried about is as soon as they see a result, or if they don't see a result next to a particular item that's listed there, do not worry. It's really important to reach out to us and ask if you don't understand or you are worried about something. Reach out to us, and you do not have to wait until a parent-teacher conference. That's the whole beauty of this, is to maintain regular contact with us. But understand that the items that you will see on the child's page for a particular subject, those items have been released because just the way our particular system has been set up, but it doesn't mean that your child has not attempted that assessment or that they missed it for some reason. It's just all of the assessments for that particular area has been put for the year. So they'll only be populated once those assessments are actually covered. Hope that answers the question somewhat.
Yep. Thank you, Ms. Siraat. And another question, will there be any change to the reports that will be given to the parents, the semester report? Will there be any inclusion of information about behavior or progress, or will the format for the report remain the same?
We have modified the format somewhat. It's mainly the same, but like we spoke before, the interpretive sheet for the grading is going to be different, obviously, because we've moved the numbers as we're expecting more from our students that's aligned with other schools. But also we have been always capturing the information about student attendance patterns, and that is something that we're looking at releasing in the next report as well. But the other subject specific wise, it will still contain the outline. It will still have the attitude to learning. There'll still be subject competencies, so specific skill sets that are highlighted in there. And then at the bottom, it puts the grades based on the strands of that particular subject, along with depending on the year level, if they've had an exam for that as well. So earlier in our session, we mentioned to take note that what you see on the student page as continuous reporting should not be confused for the grades that are put into the reports, because please remember that those grades are based on weightings, and the assessment results that you see in your child's report do not carry weightings. As an example, in maths, Mr. Hasid, maybe you could give an example, like for example, the number might be 60%, and probability might be worth 20% in the curriculum. So that obviously will have a different result in the report than when you're actually seeing it item by item. Did I explain that correctly, Mr. Saeed?
Yes. So we may have, I agree with you, Ms. Siraat. So we may have different strands, yeah, and each strand may not be equally weighted. Some strand may have heavier weighting, some strand may have smaller weighting. Yeah. So the overall grade might not be just an average of the 3 strands or 4 strands. It could be different because of heavier weighting being given to one strand as compared to the other strands.
Yeah, and that is to make it fair, so that we don't end up calculating it in the same way. So if much more time was spent looking at a particular area of mathematics, then it's only fair that a higher weighting should be given to that, compared to some area in mathematics that may have been given a very short attention. So that is where the weighting's coming. You won't see that because that's the reporting side of it, but that's where we don't want you to be confused that the grading that you see in the continuous reporting is the grading that will be the final grading, because that is the summative report, and it gives you a summary based on what is a fair distribution of learning for that subject.
Ms. Siraat, we have a question. How close indicator are these grades with regards to ATAR?
Please do not use these to compare anything to do with the ATAR. Is a very, very different game altogether, if I can use that word. The ATAR itself there's so many prediction calculators out there that should be used with caution. However, the students, once they get into year 9, they can use this information to give them a good idea as to where are their strengths, because that is what they can use this information for, to help guide them in their subject selections. But it will not give you an indication about their ATAR whatsoever. I don't believe there's any tool out there that can actually give us a definitive answer on something like as complex as the ATAR.
I think that's all the questions we have. Is there any other way the parents can contact the school if they have more questions later on? Mr. Sophian?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Said. I think what we are seeing today is the start of our journey into continuous reporting and the new beginning for parental engagement in terms of our learning. So the conversations will still continue. All right. At the end of today's session, what we'll be doing as a school is that we will be sharing this session and uploading it into our social media website. Particularly, I think it's going to be in YouTube for parents who are not able to access today's webinar to actually review this. We will also be uploading a video tutorial, which will be shared to every parent in the community. And again, if you have any questions, please get in touch with us. You can email cc@alsiraat.vic.edu.au. That's going to be the easiest way to get in touch with us, and your questions will be then directed to the relevant person. Alternatively, I think you can also drop us an email, either myself, Ms. Rahat, or Mr. Said, an email, and we'll endeavor to actually respond to your questions as soon as possible. All right, so we don't have any more questions in the question and answer box, which is great. But please feel free to continue with this discussion. Keep the conversation going. We really want to reach out to everyone in regards to working together with everyone in the community to achieve, to allow our students to actually maximize their potential. Before we end the session, any other points from the panelists?
I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us this morning for this session, and just to give a message that, look, we're starting this as a new process, a new journey, like Mrs. Sufyan just mentioned, and it's being done in really good faith. And what we really hope to achieve from this is a stronger support network for our learners and a stronger school-home partnership, working positively together. So please work with us on this as we travel on this journey together. We know that we're going to have to, we're probably going to make mistakes along the way, but this is really done in good faith because we believe in the process, we believe in the discussions, we believe that working together is going to be a better outcome for our students. So we look forward to having that relationship of working together, really. Jazakallah khairan. And Jazakallah khairan to Mr. Sufyan and Mr. Saeed and Mr. Samir for helping putting all this together as well.
All right, then thank you very much, Ms. Rahat, and thanks everyone for taking time off your busy schedule to attend today's webinar. We'll catch up again sometime in the future. If there's any questions, like we mentioned earlier, please get in touch with us. Till then, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.